So we're just going to get Yvette to join Cafe Kwae. Yvette of Cafe Kwae to join us on our live chat, and then we can begin. So I hope everybody is fine, and so far for everybody who's tuned in, thank you very much. If you have any comments, please like our videos, share with other people as well so that we can inspire them during this period of lockdown. So we can learn from business owners like Yvette in terms of what they are doing to basically keep afloat, and then to inspire us to, just keep our heads up, because this will surely end. So we just need a request from our guest today, and then we will begin. I've gotten her invite, so this should be exciting. Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear?
I can hear. This is my first time doing this. It's all very...
You can hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly when I speak?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. We might have to just check for us on your sound.
Really? Can you hear me?
Just a second. Hiya.
Hello. I can hear you.
Fantastic. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi.
Hi, Neighbor.
Hi, Yvette. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good. So to all our listeners, those who listen to our podcast, who have joined in, we just want to say thank you very much for joining us on our maiden edition of the Africa's Business Rockstars live chat. Yeah.
Can you see? I feel like I'm low. Can you, my height's okay?
Your height is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Your height is fine. Perfect. So my name is Nefa. For those who are joining us for the first time, and for those who probably not listened to our podcast before, my name is Nefa, and I'm the host of Africa's Business Rockstars. And for us at Africa's Business Rockstars, what we aim to do is really to bring to you stories of people across Africa who are excelling in their chosen field of entrepreneurship. And so we shed light on their businesses, the good, the bad, the ugly, we bear it all. And in a time like this, we thought it wise to visit some of the people we've spoken with already, as well as new people that we haven't spoken with, just to understand how they are coping, throughout COVID-19 and all the challenges, as well as good sides that have come with it, because people have become really creative, etc. So we'll get into that. So our guest today, as you can see, is Yvette. She is the one who runs Cafe Kwae. So I'll allow her to basically introduce herself and tell us a bit about herself and what Cafe Kwae is, for those of you who haven't watched our podcast. And after, you can go and listen to our entire conversation with her. So Yvette, over to you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. As Nefa said, my name is Yvette, and I own Cafe Kwae, which is a bistro-style cafe. We are in One Airport Square, which is in the Airport City area. We've been running since October 2015. So this October will be 5 years since we've been running. And that's basically it.
Awesome. 5 years. And never in your wildest dreams would you ever have thought there would be a day when you'd have to close down the cafe, right?
Can you imagine? Like when I go in there to just check on it, it just doesn't even feel real. Like there's nobody in the cafe. It's crazy. But anyway, it is what it is.
So tell us about it. We won't go straight into when you actually had to close it down, but sort of like the process it took, processing this whole pandemic, the global pandemic that we're all going through. So when you finally had to decide, safety first, so I had to eventually close the cafe. But prior to that, what was going through your mind? What were the processes, the thinking processes?
So I read somewhere, like from another restaurateur, that it's similar to the 5 stages of grief, because you start with this is denial. This cannot be. I'm here, like for real. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
And then as you keep reading the news, as the numbers keep increasing, even though we didn't have any cases in Ghana at that time. I'm a lot of like restaurant owner blogs and groups,
Yeah.
And in New York and in London, they started closing down. They started going to takeaway and delivery first.
Okay.
And then as their cases started increasing, people, their governments were telling them to shut down. So I kind of knew that was going to happen, especially since we live in a place where our healthcare is not so, so really I imagine that from an overabundance of caution, we would probably go
that route.
Extra. Exactly. So I kind of was expecting it to happen. I kind of was expecting it to happen. Once we got the first case, I was like, oh, it's a wrap. It's going to go down.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how did you handle it? How did you go about it? What was the first thing you did? Did you just up and shut down Cafe Kwae, or you phased it out?
No. My first thing was safety. Okay. Because of where we're located, we're very close to the airport, and we get a lot of international traffic, either people going to the airport, coming from the airport. It's a hangout spot for people from all areas, basically. So for me, I knew that I was going to have to make a decision very quickly. So I can't remember. I think as soon as we got our first couple of cases, we started taking out chairs to create out more space, distancing. Okay. We put in hand sanitizers. We put in mandatory checks and cleaning things every half hour type thing, just to stay on top of stuff. Right. And also downsize our menu a bit so that I stopped buying stuff actually at that point, because as I said, I was anticipating that we would go into lockdown mode. So I personally stopped ordering stuff like in bulk. I just was trying to use out my produce that I had. Right. To a certain point, and then so we started with just cautionary measures, right? Cleanliness, taking out some tables, just talking to my staff about being aware or looking out for symptoms. Yeah. With they themselves or with guests that came in, that kind of stuff. Right.
Right. So did you begin to see a slowdown in terms of the number of people who were now patronizing the cafe?
I think in the first week, sort of again with the 5 stages of grief, I think people were in denial. Okay. So when we got our first case, I remember that week, I was convinced, I think it was a Thursday night or a Thursday morning going to a Friday, or a Friday going to, no, it was a Thursday going to a Friday. Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh, we're probably not going to do any business today. I'm sure the cafe will be dead on Friday and Saturday. And it actually wasn't the case. Okay. So that kind of threw me for a little bit, because I was like, what's going on here? So that kind of held us over there for a while. So I think it took like a week for people to start reacting. Right. I think every time they announced another case or a bunch of cases, we would see a drop. Because I think then people also started seeing that this thing is serious. Real. Yeah. Exactly. So I think every time we got more cases, then there'll be a blip. That's basically how it worked. Yeah.
Okay. So did you then resort to doing deliveries, takeout?
Yeah. So I think a week after the first couple of cases came, after the first few cases were announced, we went again, because there's nobody in the shop. Like maybe by the end of that first week, where numbers had dropped significantly, probably about 60%. Okay. And so at that point, I was like, okay, there's no point all of us being here, having a full staff, a full kitchen. So let's just scale down and promote more takeaways and deliveries. But I think at this time, even though there were still people coming into the shop, a few people would come in but just choose to sit outside, that type of stuff. Yeah. We went into takeaway maybe a week before the lockdown was announced. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you advertise that you'll now be doing takeaway, or it was just something?
Yes. So I try to communicate with my
clientele.
Yes, my clientele, because really they're like family. I always tell them my cafe quite massive, so I like to communicate with them and tell them what's happening, and because frankly this thing is, it's not everybody's going through it. It doesn't matter what your industry is. Nobody is isolated from this stuff. So it's not like there's anything to be ashamed about. It really is a case of this is happening. This is what it is. It's a pretty fluid situation. So I can't sit here and say I'll know what I'll do next week. So as and when it's happening, I just sort of update you, and then we just keep it moving.
So how long did you have to run the takeout?
We did it for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, we did about 2 weeks.
For about 2 weeks. And then the final decision was to just basically close down the cafe.
Yeah, when they did, they told us to go into lockdown for Accra and surrounding regions. Yeah. I think the first day we might have gone in the first few days, and then also the numbers really even dropped further.
Right.
And I personally, as a business owner, thought between what we're making versus the exposure, my staff, the risk of exposure, them sitting on public transport, coming in, it just wasn't worth it. So as a business, I decided for me and for my team, it was best for us to close and then wait it out for the next 14 days and then figure it out after April 13th, whatever that means.
You make it seem like it was a really easy decision to make. Is that the case?
It wasn't, but you know, the thing is, there's also a the thing, I read a lot, and like, I'm always online, like on my restaurant blogs, checking out what's happening in New York, what's happening in London, what's happening in SA, what's happening in Lagos. And we're not alone. So I think it's actually kind of reassuring in a way. It's comforting in a way, because you know that you're not going through this alone.
Right.
So it's not like people have decided not to come to Cafe Kwae ever and ever again because, you know, you don't make good food. So that would be freaky. But it's a global pandemic and everybody's suffering. So for me, it is what it is, and we're just going to have to roll through it.
Right. So what has been the effect of this pandemic on your operations?
Well, now we're not working. So
yeah,
basically, operations are shut. But we're hoping that today's Tuesday. So we're hoping, I don't know what the government is going to announce like in the next few days, but we're hoping to get back to takeaway and delivery maybe after Easter.
Yeah.
But for the moment, we're shut. Staff at home. I'm home. You know.
Yeah. But I'm talking more in terms of exactly what you're saying. So your staff are home, but these are people who were depending on working for you to get salaries to say feed themselves, feed their families, you know, so that rippling effect. And then it was also your source of income as well, you know. So
and our suppliers. And as I said, it's not just us, it's people who make my bread, people who supply me beef, people who supply me fish. Like everybody who depends on Cafe Kwae being open has been hit by this, you know. So on that sense, we still keep in touch. My suppliers will call me. There really is not much you can do apart from say, oh, let's pray and, you know, it's going to get better. In terms of my staff, I'm quite open with them in terms of where we are as a business. I spoke to them right when I knew we were going to go into lockdown mode, and I said, listen, I think it's easier for all of us to take a cut in terms of the numbers we're working, so that at the end of the month, everybody gets to take something home. Versus us having to decide that, you know, we need to lay off X amount and then some people having to suffer for, you know, for the time being. So they were pretty understanding about the situation. And so that's what we'll be doing. Even when we come back, we're probably going to run a shift system where everybody, instead of working 40 hours, will probably work 20. And then we'll ease into it as and when the business starts getting busier.
Yeah. So when you say take a cut in terms of salary cut or in terms of
take us out. So because we're working less hours. So as opposed to the standard 40 hours, everybody's going to be working 15 to 20 hours and be paid based on that versus and at least that ties us over, because the what I'm learning is the trick is to try and stem the bleeding, you know, because we're bleeding, we're gushing out blood right now, like it's like a bloodbath, but you're trying to stem it, you know. So things like takeaway and delivery help, things like cutting down hours help. Things like not ordering plenty things that you won't, you know, ordering in bulk and just ordering as and when you need it. Yeah. Those kind of things are stemming the bleed. And that's basically those kind of measures we're trying to take till we figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Are these decisions that you took on your own, or you had like a team of people who you got together and said, you know what, this is what's happening. Step 1 should be this, step 2 should be that. So reducing the number of hours, reducing how much we order. Was that like a test for you, or you basically just, you know, let it go?
Well, I have managers and I have team leaders. So obviously the buck stops with me because I'm the owner. So ultimately it's about reading the polls, but I have to look at where we are as a business financially, look at our books and say, hey, this is where we are. And this, you know, talking to my trusty accountant, IDS, and say, this is where we are. This is what we can afford to do as a business. Because as I said, you're trying to figure out, this thing will end. So when it ends, you need to have cash flow to be able to run, right? Yeah. So for me, it doesn't make any sense to be carrying like a boatload of staff, making them work normal hours, and then a month later tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So for us, it's just like looking at the long game and saying, hopefully we come out of this, even if it's May, April, whatever, we're going to come out of it somehow. And then out of it, we still need to pick up, open our doors, put on our ACs, put on our lights, sell our rice pots, you know?
Enjoy the cafe, yes.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So currently, with your staff that are at home, they are still getting some stipend from your end to sort of like sustain.
Well, they got paid. Where are we?
We're in April.
So they got paid for March, and so April Yeah, so once we come in next week, they'll get some hours. So basically, everybody's been put on hourly, and then you're going to be paid according to how much you work, basically.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's how we're going to go. Yeah.
So are you still doing the deliveries and takeouts?
No, for the moment, we're closed completely.
Totally.
So once, hopefully, they said April 13th. I don't know where I got that date from, but basically, when that day comes, if lockdown has been taken down or whatever, we're out of lockdown, then we'll go back to, because then it's easier to move, staff are not getting harassed and, you know, that kind of stuff. But,
yeah. So for you as a person, how are you keeping afloat? How are you keeping afloat?
You see, I've always been a glass full type of person, to be honest.
Yeah.
And as I said, I read a lot. And I read about like entrepreneurs and their story. And it's war. Being an entrepreneur is not a walk in the park.
No, not at all.
There's no entrepreneur who can tell you that I started and I took off from wherever. That's one. So this is our moment. This is our challenge, the big challenge that we're going to have to face as a business.
Yeah.
So again, there's comfort in that and knowing that you can come out of it.
Yeah.
But I also read a lot about like managing anxiety and how to calm that stuff down. You know, I dance. I dance with my sister. I'm on TikTok now. I'm learning new skills. I'm driving my sister crazy. But I'm also reading about like, you know, recipes that I have a stockpile of stuff I haven't been able to process that I've now tested out, like a bunch of stuff that when we open, we'll have new stuff on our menu.
Right.
Yeah, like a backlog of paperwork. It's just stuff that for me, I don't know when I will get this downtime again.
Yeah.
So no matter how it came, I'm just taking it as it is, taking the silver lining and saying it means that I can catch up on stuff that I've just been putting on the back burner for like 5 years. You know, clean out my house, you know, do my laundry, things like that. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are moments that are dark that I call my sister, like, I can't breathe. She's like, I'm in it now, just breathe in. But, you know, overall, I just ask myself, this is out of my control.
Yeah.
So I'm learning not to really let things that are outside my control impact the way I live my life. It's just, there's not a lot I can do about the situation.
And it's also a silver lining, right? Because now you're thinking of new recipes, for instance.
Exactly. You know? And, you know, I have time to check on my family members who, you know, I don't hardly ever find time to hang out with.
Yeah.
So these are the moments. And then it's also teaching. For me, it's actually been a very humbling experience, Nefa, because it really teaches us that. It teaches us that a lot of the things that we think are important in the whole scheme of things really are not. Do you know what I mean? Like a whole New York City has come to a standstill.
Exactly.
Do you see what I mean? Like that's like the impact of this.
Basketball games have been shut down. Football.
Boris Johnson is in ICU. This is a big deal. Like
yeah.
So for me, it's like you realize that in the whole scheme of things, we're about like this.
Yeah.
You see, so I for me, it's been very humbling. And it's also teaching you to prioritize the things that you think are so important that you have to do. You know, my mother was laughing at my sister and I look at our clothes and our shoes and our wardrobe. Now we can't go anywhere. I have one dress for 2 days.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So hey, so you take what you can, leave the rest on the floor. If you're a person of faith, this is where you pray.
Yeah.
You know, you channel it, and then you know that ultimately things will work out for our good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it doesn't, we move on. You know? Yeah. So it is what it is.
How are you planning? So it seems like you figured out this particular moment in terms of the fact that this is what is happening now. So you figured out the now and you're adjusting to suit your current situation. How are you preparing for when all this is over? Because it will be over. I mean, the Lord God, like you said, be a prayerful person. Jesus said, this will be over. You know what I mean?
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Exactly. So what are your terms and your plans in terms of preparing for post, you know, corona pandemic?
So
how are you preparing for that?
This will, I think, shift the way we do things as an industry.
Okay.
I mean, we were already doing a lot of takeout and delivery.
Okay.
But I think until they come up with a vaccine, people are still going to be nervous about excessive socialization. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And as an industry, that the core of what we do is getting people together. Like we facilitate people getting together. We facilitate parties, enjoyment, Do you
Right.
see?
Right.
So for people not to be doing that, I think it's going to force us all as business owners to figure out how we play the game going forward. I don't have the answers right now. I'm still learning. But I know that for sure, probably takeout and delivery or finding some way of getting food to the customer, like that is going to be a big thing for sure. I think that healthier food, because, there's a big thing on if you boost your immunity, COVID-19 won't catch you.
Exactly. Exactly.
In an attempt to boost our immunity, I'm sure healthy eating will be a thing, so that's something that we could look at, and also I think for me also it's also breaking the barriers. As I said, everybody's going through that. And a couple of weeks or a week ago, I put a post on just like the funny tweets and memes I'd seen about COVID-19.
I saw that.
For me, I think it's getting the humor and not taking life too seriously. So it's broken down that barrier between the client and us, and just being real. There's a realness that's this situation is what that I particularly appreciate. So going forward, just when the chips fall and we get back to the shop and we figure out where things are, assuming our ACs and our lights are still working, we'll just turn it on and start going. And we're going to throw a badass block party. I mean, enjoyment. That party is going to be badass. We're going to throw out a kick-ass party for the streets after we figure it out, and then we go out the party.
So that's to say that you're very certain, and like you can feel it in your gut that you would be able to get Cafe Kwae back to where it was before. This place people just want to come and hang out and have a good meal.
I don't know if we'll get it back to where we were before, but we'll get it to something. Do you get it? At the core of what I do is connecting people with good food.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. That's what I love to do.
Yeah.
So will it mean that I have to twist my model a little bit? I don't know. But what I know for sure is that I will still be doing food and I will still be connecting people with good food. That's what I know for sure.
Yeah.
In what form, in what shape, I don't know. But you can be sure at enjoyment.com, it's still going to be happening at Cafe Kwae. That's much I can guarantee you.
Okay. So just for our viewers, I see their comments, very interesting comments going on. They're talking about your bottomless. They're talking about
bottomless, shake.
Yeah.
French toast. Come on. Things are happening on these streets that we need to get back to, man. Corona is holding us back. But I think it is good. We need to chill. We were getting too active in life. God needed to bring us down small. So it's okay. We'll listen and then we'll do better next time. We promise.
So I'd just like to reach out to everybody who's watching us right now. Live. This is on the side. If you have any questions, you can post them, and then I'll ask Yvette. So we're talking to Yvette of Cafe Kwae. This is the first live chat for Africa's business rock stars, and we thought, hey, they are business owners. There are people who patronize services of our entrepreneurs. So how do we let them know that things are still going on just fine, or we'll get out of this, or how do you prepare yourself, for the next steps? So that's basically why we're having that. So if you have any questions, please post them, and then I'll ask Yvette. But then Yvette, back to you. So what would you say are the key lessons that this crisis has taught you as a business owner in general?
I think the first thing is stuff happens. I was going to say something more impolite, but that's
stuff happens.
Stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it can come literally like a hurricane when you're not expecting it. That's number one.
Right.
The second thing, probably even more important than that, is the team that you're with. Your team matters so much.
Yeah.
Like the number of times that my people have called me, like, Madam, are you okay? Hey, Madam, we have to work. Or even when I was saying that we should close, a lot of them were like, oh, no, Madam, we shouldn't close. We can't wait. We'll be okay, Yeah. So for me, it's been actually really gratifying to see my people rally around the brand and around our customers.
Yeah.
So I guess the second lesson is how you treat your people matters, as a business, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are doing the work for you. They're your foot soldiers. The third thing is you have to be prepared to shift gears.
Exactly.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Because as I said, stuff happens.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to react. So assuming as much as I'm a positive person, I'm also trying to be realistic when it comes to business. So I'm learning to be realistic.
Exactly. It's very important.
You know?
Yeah.
So I asked myself, what's the worst thing that could happen? Assuming they tell us that we can't have people in our restaurants till the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, till this chloroquine that Donald Trump has been talking about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, till it comes into fruition. What
Yeah.
are we going to do? How am I
Yeah.
going to survive? How am I going to pay my staff? What am I going to do? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's teaching me to be flexible.
Yeah.
And to think outside the box, you know. So still a work in progress, but we're thinking.
So let me take a couple of questions that I've seen coming through. I see you're reading some of them. So you touched on this already, but just for the purpose of those who joined us later. So one question is whether you had to let your staff go. So you can just basically let us.
Okay. So we took over the Christmas period because of the year of return. We were really busy. So we hired some casuals. So the casuals, when stuff was getting murky, we let them go. But my core Cafe Kwae team that I've been with from day one, pretty much some of them, I haven't let anybody go as of yet. Okay. What I've said is, as I said, we're doing less hours. So everybody's taking a bit of a pay cut till hopefully another month or so. I mean, we can work for another month or so, and then, you know, we'll see where it goes.
How it goes. Sure.
Yeah.
And then the other question that's come through, which I think is a really good one. So thank you for asking that, was in terms of leadership. That's from Erefua. Whether, you know, you've changed the way you operate. So have you seen some team members exhibit more leadership skills than others? And do you intend to reward those who sort of have been able to change their behavior or change the way they were supporting you due to this? Have you seen anything of that sort yet?
Well, actually, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because of earlier on, when it was before we went into lockdown mode.
Yeah.
Our hours weren't so fixed. So we were doing our normal hours are 7 to 10.
Yeah.
But we dialed down. Oh, that's another thing we did. We cut our hours. So we started doing just 9 to 6.
Okay.
But then in typical work mode fashion, some people would stroll in at 10 because there was no guest to serve. You're just
exactly.
Yeah. So yes, there were some of those. Oh, but believe you me, I'm like, excuse me, this is not the time to be testing me.
Not at all. You have standards.
This is not the time, honestly. So yeah. But you know, I think it's human nature. It's that they will push if they see that there's no pushback. But in terms of reward, no. I just tell you to just stop being difficult and just move on.
Yeah. Okay, and now we know that your cafe is located, you have 2 locations, so we'll come to the second one and how this sort of like affected that, because I know you wanted
that's another thing we have to talk about.
But I'll get to that, don't worry. So focusing on the one that's located at One Airport Square, you know, it's a high class area within Accra, so obviously it comes with the high rental charges. So this is very similar to the question that I see Boating Ama is asking. She's saying she would like to know how you deal with your rent if lockdown is extended. Are you renegotiating agreements, for instance? You know, so what exactly is going on with that? If you can share with us.
So it will have to be. In other countries, they're doing rent forgiveness. They're doing some sort of, you know, break on rent.
Yeah.
My landlord is away because we're all on lockdown, but we've been in talks.
Okay.
And I think they're just going to have to be practical about it because it's a matter of we're not working. So I have started conversations, and I started early on, to be honest. As soon as the first couple of cases were announced, and I knew in my head we're going to lock down and we're taking a dip, I'm like, listen. And I think it's always better to have more conversations than less.
Yeah.
So I immediately went to like my One Airport Square guy, and I was like, listen, this is what's happening on the streets. You can see what's happening on the streets. Yeah. So there's definitely going to be a conversation about that. So at least already, if they're not thinking about it, they know to anticipate. So I think it's very important to have that conversation, and not just even with my landlord, with my suppliers, with people that I might have to pay bills to. You have to be realistic.
So just sort of like have extended contracts, right?
Exactly. Right. So the thing about this virus is nobody can be like, I don't know what's happening in the world. Like
it's it's not out there.
Exactly. It's not like, oh, by the way, do you know that this was happening? We are talking about, you know, and then so I'm having those conversations. I've been having those conversations. And I think once the lockdown is lifted and we can start doing more face-to-face interaction, I will be in their offices quite similarly having discussions.
Yeah.
And I think, I may be wrong, let me not talk too fast, but I want to believe that the government may also have some initiatives.
Yeah, I was going to come to that.
Yes, I mean, I read something in the president's last speech. I'm, focused on it entirely yet, but I believe there's certain things that, and I know that with my accountants, they advised me to immediately notify the GRA and the IRS about a ceasing in business. Like, I'm not operating now, ceasing in operation, there's a term for it, but basically it means I'm not working. So that so I'm not paying PAYE and SNITs or something. Yeah, exactly. So there's some sort of moratorium on that as well. So you just have to be proactive about it. As I said, it's a case of I'm guessing and I don't have. So you have to be proactive about it. You know what I mean? And just be honest about the situation and just tell them.
Okay, so let's go on to your other location, and I'll come back to the questions that are coming in. And I must say, well, thank you so much for your questions. It's been a very engaging conversation, I can tell from the questions that you're asking. Be sure to spread the word, follow us on all our social media handles. And this is just the first out of many. Okay, so Cafe Kwae was going to have 2 locations, right? And the second location was going through a soft launch, very beautiful area. And how did the pandemic affect this new location of yours? And give us details for those who don't even know where it was.
So the second born, my second born, is called Kwae Terrace. Okay. And it's located in Volta Place. And it's also a business building, but it's more, how do I say it? A more central office building. It's on the 5th floor. So you literally have to go through a reception. So that, in terms of, when you're asking me in terms of being flexible, there are certain things that you can't fix. Like that, Kwae Terrace is located in an office building, and all the offices decided to go into lockdown. Exactly. Like so the lifts are even turned off. So there's nothing you can do. There's no lift for you to even climb to the 5th floor. So in such a case like this, you can't really freak out about it. It is what it is. If you can't do anything about it, you can't do anything about it. But Kwae, we were able to move into take out and delivery. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of one business, I couldn't do anything about it. We shut down for Kwae Terrace, I think beginning of March. When the officers stopped coming in, But Kwae, we had a bit of leeway, and we were able to still do takeout and delivery for a little bit of time. Sorry, what was the question?
So the question was how this pandemic affected, because you wanted to launch it.
Yes, we're going to do a fancy launch. With the bells and whistles, a band. I had a dress. But
but all that didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Okay,
and I'm very bitter about it. I'm bitter about it. But I believe that we shall have that launch. And so now the good thing is, because it was soft, it was easy to wind up, because we weren't really invested in the community and stuff. So it was easy to wrap up and put the padlock on it and move on till we figure out what we're going to do when that one.
So, your expert advice, since you are a veteran in this industry.
Hey, 5 years. Can you say 5 years as a veteran? I don't think so.
5 years is not easy. Yeah, that's a 5-year-old child.
That's true.
Yeah. So, did you? Okay. Well, you can share your opinion whether you think people within this industry, or you can speak for yourself if you'd like to. But do you see this industry then dwindling, or would you see people more adapting? The way in which their businesses operate due to a pandemic like this, that, in all honesty, none of us ever expected.
I mean, the truth of the matter with anything, the strong will survive. That's just life. Or some people might just decide to switch their model and do something else. But especially, I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a hotel. And they depend a lot on international travel and international visitors, and they even host some airline, workers. I mean, that's devastating. There's nothing you can do about that, especially if planes are not flying, you don't have customers. It's as simple as that. So my heart goes out to business like that, because it's going to be difficult because you have a hotel, it's there. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to turn it into something else. But I definitely think that we'll all have to get creative in what we do and how we do it. It'll probably force us to get better. It's uncharted territory. I don't know.
Which brings us to another question that someone had asked whether you had in your business plan, because remember in the conversation that we had earlier, you talked about how you had a business plan and you had advisors to you put the plan together. And for those of you who haven't heard that conversation, like I said, it's available on our podcast, so you can actually watch the full interview with Yvette. This is just a snippet of the interview that we had, but referring to that, you mentioned you had a business plan. So the question is, in that plan, had you already prepared for something like this, like the what if, the unknown future type thing?
Nope.
No.
Hadn't.
No.
Hadn't done that. I'm not even gonna lie. Nope.
Yeah,
I hadn't done that.
Yeah. I mean, none of us saw this coming.
Yeah, you can think of, okay, what if my business, I always try to do a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But the worst case scenario is talking about 20-30% reduction, right? You're not thinking that some virus is going to come and people are not going to be able to fly. And you see, like, you have to shut your borders as a country for like 6 weeks. That's not in, like, you know. Yeah, I didn't think that. I wasn't expecting that.
All right, so this was actually supposed to run for 30 minutes. But yes, the conversation has been so good that we've actually extended the time. And we'll just give a few more. I mean, after all, I heard someone say, not heard someone, but in case in points, we are all on lockdown. So really, where are you going and what are you doing?
We got time. I don't have time. I don't have time. We have time. Time is what we have.
Exactly. But let's wind it down. So question is, what advice do you have for people who want to enter the hospitality industry?
Really? People still want to enter the hospitality industry in this day and age? If you're not ready here, don't come inside. What are you going to do? Actually, I'm kidding. But I don't know. I mean, let me tell you, the hospitality industry is brutal on a good year. Do you understand? Like, in good times, it is brutal. Yeah. So I cannot even imagine the kind of work we're going to have to do to get back. Do you see what I mean? Like, so obviously, if it's your passion and something you truly believe in, go for it. Know that you're going to work hard. You're probably going to work twice as hard. Forget it, 3-4 times as hard than even normal times. And that's not just hospitality. Every industry is going to have to, like, really level up in ways that we probably are not even sure, or we're not even aware of what we're going to do yet. Exactly. So yeah, if you want to get into it, I don't know what kind of advice. Work hard. That's the advice I can give you. Don't be lazy. Work hard. You know? And that's not just hospitality. Then what happens? You get. Obviously, if you have questions, send me a DM. Don't slide into my DM at midnight asking me like strange questions, but like serious questions.
Or you can put your questions here, and then we'll reach out.
Yeah, put your questions there. I'm more than happy to share what I know.
Okay. But what we'll also do is we'll just re-drop the link for the conversation we had with you for the pilot edition of our podcast, because we addressed all these questions in terms of what the real struggle is like, so people know how to walk in the park. So we'll reiterate that, or you can simply refer to that interview that we had, and then you'll have your questions answered. All right, so about to wrap up. On a lighter note, I saw Boy, he put up a post, and I agree with him. He says, listen, you can still have that soft launch. You can do it virtually, okay? Because everybody is going virtual now. So he says we can
virtual will be my dress justice. What are you talking about?
We can make our own renditions of your menu. You know, give us the music, give us the location, and we'll have this virtual.
We'll have a party. We'll have a virtual. We might just have to do that to tie us down, so this thing gets over and done.
All right, Yvette, thank you so much for
thank you, Nefa.
Yes. And viewers, we hope you have really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, it's the first out of many. So ensure that you stick and stay. You keep on following Africa's Business Rockstars, because we'll bring you many more conversations from our entrepreneurs, both new and old, and let you know how they're basically keeping up. We love Yvette's positivity, her vibe, you know, her energy during these trying times. Let's all try and emulate.
Gotta stay wrinkle free, people. Gotta stay wrinkle free.
All right. Thank you. Bye.